The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Blackwood Estate, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Sophia Reyes moved quietly through the grand hallways, pushing her cleaning cart and trying her best to blend into the background. At 27, she had perfected the art of invisibility, a skill that served her well as the newest housekeeper for one of the richest men in the city. 3 weeks into the job, and Sophia still felt overwhelmed by the sheer size of the mansion. 14 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, 3 kitchens, a home theater, an indoor pool, and countless other rooms that seemed to exist only to showcase expensive things that nobody ever used. The pay was better than her last 3 jobs combined, though, and with her mother's medical bills piling up, she couldn't afford to complain. Remember, you are to dust everything but never move anything, Mrs. Wallace, the stern-faced head housekeeper, had instructed on Sophia's first day. Mr. Blackwood notices even the smallest changes. Sophia had quickly learned this was true. Her employer, Vincent Blackwood, was a 40-year-old tech company owner worth billions who seemed to find fault in everything. Just last week, he had complained that the imported Egyptian cotton sheets weren't folded with the correct number of creases. The week before, he'd fired a gardener for trimming a hedge 2 inches shorter than specified. Sophia pushed her cart into the main living room, which was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the perfectly manicured gardens, and priceless artwork hung on walls, painted in a shade of white that probably had some fancy name like heirloom pearl or whispered cloud. But what truly dominated the room, what always caught Sophia's eye no matter how many times she cleaned in here, was the grand piano. It wasn't just any piano. This was a Steinway Model D concert grand in polished black, positioned in the perfect spot so that sunlight would hit it dramatically at different times of day. Sophia had overheard Mrs. Wallace telling another maid it had cost more than most people's houses. Yet in all her time working here, Sophia had never once seen anyone play it. Today's task list included dusting the living room, which meant carefully going over every inch of that beautiful instrument without disturbing a single thing. Sophia approached it with her special microfiber cloth, the one she kept separate from her other cleaning supplies just for the piano. As she gently wiped dust from the fall board covering the keys, she felt the familiar ache in her chest. How many years had it been now? 6? 7? The memories of her old life sometimes felt like they belonged to someone else entirely, a girl who once had dreams bigger than cleaning other people's homes. Sophia glanced over her shoulder. The living room opened onto the main hallway, and from her position she could see all the way to the grand entrance. The house was empty today. Mr. Blackwood had left early that morning for a business trip to Chicago, scheduled to return late tonight. Mrs. Wallace was running errands in town, and the other staff were working in different wings of the mansion. She stood perfectly still for a moment, listening. Nothing but the faint hum of the climate control system and the distant ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the hallway. Before she could talk herself out of it, Sophia carefully lifted the fallboard. The pristine white and black keys seemed to glow in the sunlight. Her heart beat faster as she set aside her cleaning cloth and gently lowered herself onto the bench, adjusting it slightly. "Just a moment," she whispered to herself. "Just one moment." Her fingers hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. It had been so long. What if she couldn't remember anything? What if she'd lost whatever small talent she once had? Sophia took a deep breath and placed her fingers on the cool ivory. A simple C major chord. The sound that emerged was so pure, so perfect, that tears immediately sprang to her eyes. The acoustic properties of the room amplified the notes, letting them soar to the vaulted ceiling and resonate there. She began to play softly, a simple melody her grandmother had taught her when she was just 5 years old. Her fingers remembered the patterns even if her mind had forgotten the name of the piece. As the familiar notes filled the empty room, something inside Sophia began to unwind, a tightly coiled spring of tension she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. The melody ended, and the final notes hung in the air. Sophia closed her eyes, savoring the moment. Then, almost without conscious thought, her hands began to move again. This time they found the opening notes of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The slow, haunting triplets flowed from her fingers as naturally as breathing. She lost track of time as she played, her body swaying slightly with the music. The world around her faded, the mansion, the cleaning cart waiting nearby, the weight of her responsibilities, all of it disappeared. There was only the music, the beautiful instrument, and the bittersweet joy of reconnecting with the part of herself she'd been forced to lock away. Sophia was so absorbed that she didn't notice the front door opening, didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway, didn't sense another presence until it was too late. "What do you think you're doing?" The voice cut through the music like a knife. Sophia's hands jerked away from the keys as if burned. She jumped up from the bench, knocking it backward with a loud thud that echoed through the suddenly silent room. Vincent Blackwood stood in the doorway, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the floor. His dark hair was perfectly styled despite what must have been a long flight, and his tailored suit showed no signs of travel wrinkles. But it was his eyes that Sophia couldn't look away from, cold gray eyes that reminded her of winter storms. "Mr. Blackwood," she stammered, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "I'm so sorry. I was cleaning and You were playing my piano." His voice was quiet, which somehow made it worse than if he'd shouted. He set his briefcase down and walked slowly into the room. "A piano that costs more than you would earn in 10 years. A piano that is not meant to be touched by the cleaning staff." Sophia felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. "Sir, I apologize. It won't happen again." Mr. Blackwood circled the piano, running his finger along its glossy surface as if checking for dust. His expression was unreadable as he adjusted the bench Sophia had knocked askew. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked suddenly. The question caught her off guard. She'd been expecting to be fired on the spot. "My grandmother taught me when I was little," she replied, keeping her eyes fixed on the floor. "And then I took lessons at school. Nothing formal, that wasn't entirely true. There had been a scholarship once, a teacher who believed in her. Competitions won. But that life was gone now, buried under years of practical concerns and financial hardship." Vincent Blackwood was studying her with an intensity that made Sophia want to disappear into the expensive carpet beneath her feet. She waited for the inevitable, for him to tell her to pack her things and leave. Instead, he simply said, "Return to your duties," before walking out, leaving Sophia standing there shaking with relief and residual fear. As she gathered her cleaning supplies with trembling hands, Sophia thought that would be the end of it. A close call, but perhaps Mr. Blackwood was in a generous mood after his business trip. Maybe he would simply forget the incident. She couldn't have been more wrong. The next morning, Sophia arrived at work to find Mrs. Wallace waiting for her with a pinched expression. "Mr. Blackwood wants to see you in his study." Immediately, Sophia's stomach dropped. This was it. She'd be fired after all, and the decent paycheck she so desperately needed would disappear. How would she pay for her mother's medicine this month? The walk to Vincent Blackwood's study felt like walking to her own execution. Mrs. Wallace left her at the heavy wooden door with a look that mixed pity with something that might have been curiosity. After a moment's hesitation, Sophia knocked softly. "Enter," came the curt response from within. The study was a dark paneled room lined with books that Sophia suspected were chosen more for their leather bindings than their content. Vincent Blackwood sat behind an enormous desk, not looking up from his computer screen as she entered. "Close the door," he said. Sophia did as instructed, then stood with her hands clasped in front of her, waiting. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Mr. Blackwood continued to type something on his computer. Finally, he looked up. "I'm hosting a dinner party tomorrow evening," he said. 20 guests, very important people from my industry and several potential investors." Sophia blinked in confusion. Was he expecting her to clean something specific for the event? "Yes, sir," she replied when it became clear he was waiting for a response. "You'll serve drinks and appetizers alongside the catering staff," he continued, his eyes never leaving her face. "And after dinner, you'll provide the entertainment." "Entertainment?" Sophia echoed, not understanding. A small, cold smile appeared on Vincent Blackwood's face. "Yes, you'll play the piano for my guests." The blood drained from Sophia's face as she realized what he was saying. "Sir, I couldn't possibly—" "You could," he interrupted smoothly. "And you will, unless you'd prefer to seek employment elsewhere?" The threat hung in the air between them. Sophia thought of her mother's medical bills, the rent due next week, the stack of past due notices sitting on her kitchen table. "I understand, sir," she said quietly, defeat weighing down each word. Vincent Blackwood nodded once, satisfied. "Good, that will be all. As Sophia left the study, a terrible understanding dawned on her. This wasn't about music. This wasn't even about the audacity of a maid touching his precious piano. This was about power, about showing her and his wealthy friends exactly where she belonged. Tomorrow evening, Vincent Blackwood was going to put her on display. Like the expensive art on his walls or the crystal chandeliers hanging from his ceilings, she would be just another possession for his guests to admire, or more likely, another servant for them to ignore, unless, of course, she surprised them all. Sophia barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined herself sitting at that gleaming piano, surrounded by wealthy people in expensive clothes, all staring at her with judgment in their eyes. Her stomach twisted with anxiety, and by morning she had considered quitting at least a dozen times. But reality was a harsh teacher. Her mother's medical bills wouldn't pay themselves. The rent wouldn't magically disappear, and jobs that paid as well as this one were nearly impossible to find, especially without a college degree or specialized training. So at 7 a.m. sharp, Sophia arrived at Blackwood Estate determined to get through whatever humiliation awaited her. The mansion buzzed with preparation for the evening's event. Additional staff had been brought in, caterers setting up in the kitchen, florists arranging elaborate centerpieces, workers polishing every surface until it gleamed. Sophia was instructed to continue her regular cleaning duties until 4 o'clock, when she would help the catering team with final preparations. "And what's this I hear about you playing the piano tonight?" Mrs. Wallace asked as she handed Sophia her task list for the day. The older woman's expression was unreadable, but there was a hint of concern in her eyes. "Mr. Blackwood's orders," Sophia replied quietly. Mrs. Wallace pressed her lips together in a tight line. "That man," she muttered, then stopped herself. "Well, I suppose we all do what we must. There's a dress in the staff changing room. Mr. Blackwood had it sent over this morning. You're to change into it before the guests arrive." Sophia felt a fresh wave of dread. A dress? This was getting worse by the minute. The day passed in a blur of cleaning products, vacuum cleaners, and polishing cloths. Sophia worked mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She found herself trying to remember pieces she had once played well. It had been so long since she'd practiced regularly. What if her fingers failed her? What if she embarrassed herself completely? At 4 o'clock, she reported to the kitchen as instructed. The catering staff gave her a black serving uniform and a quick tutorial on proper serving etiquette. "Don't make eye contact unless spoken to," the head server told her. "Keep to the right side when serving, left when clearing. And whatever you do, don't drop anything." By 6:30, guests began to arrive. Sophia, dressed in the server's uniform, stood with the catering staff, a tray of champagne flutes balanced carefully in her hands. From her position, she could observe Vincent Blackwood greeting his guests in the grand foyer. He was the perfect host, charming, attentive, his cold demeanor replaced by warm smiles and firm handshakes. These were important people, Sophia realized as she listened to snippets of conversation. Tech executives, investors, a famous architect, even a state senator. Men in tailored suits worth more than her yearly salary. Women dripping in jewelry that could pay her mother's medical bills 10 times over. As she circulated with her tray, Sophia kept her eyes downcast, but she couldn't help noticing the piano waiting in the corner of the living room. Someone had opened the fallboard, exposing the keys, a silent invitation, or perhaps a warning. Dinner was served at 8 in the formal dining room. Sophia helped serve the elaborate 5-course meal, trying to make herself invisible as she placed plates and filled wine glasses. The conversation flowed around her. Stock prices, property investments, someone's new yacht, political connections. The wealth in the room was staggering, and Sophia felt the weight of her outsider status with every passing minute. "Vincent, this Chilean sea base is divine," gushed a woman with platinum blonde hair and a diamond necklace that caught the light with every movement. "You simply must tell me who your chef is." "I believe in investing in the best, Charlotte," Vincent replied smoothly. His eyes flickered to Sophia as she refilled his water glass. "In all aspects of life." By the time dessert was served, a delicate chocolate soufflé with gold leaf, Sophia's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Soon, very soon, Vincent Blackwood would make his announcement, and then everyone in this room would be staring at her. The moment came as coffee was being poured. Vincent tapped his crystal glass gently with a silver spoon, and the room fell silent. "Friends, thank you all for coming tonight. he said, standing at the head of the table. "Before we move to the living room for drinks, I've arranged a special treat." Sophia's hands began to tremble as she stood against the wall with the other servers. "As you know, I acquired that Steinway Grand last year at auction," Vincent continued. "A magnificent instrument with a fascinating history. It once belonged to a concert pianist who performed for European royalty. But sadly, it's been sitting unplayed in my living room." He paused, his eyes finding Sophia across the room. "Until yesterday, when I discovered that one of my staff has been hiding an interesting talent." The guest turned to follow his gaze, 20 pairs of eyes suddenly fixed on Sophia. She felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. "Sophia," Vincent called, his voice pleasant but firm. "Would you please favor us with a performance?" The room fell silent. Sophia could feel curiosity and mild amusement radiating from the guests. To them, this was just a novel form of entertainment, the maid who played piano. How quaint, how unexpected. She stepped forward on legs that felt like they might give way beneath her. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood," she managed to say, though her voice sounded distant to her own ears. As the party moved to the living room, Sophia slipped away to the staff changing room. There, hanging on a hook, was the dress Mrs. Wallace had mentioned. Sophia's breath caught when she saw it. It was a simple black cocktail dress, elegant but modest, not what she had expected at all. She changed quickly, her mind racing. The dress fit perfectly, which meant Vincent Blackwood somehow knew her size, a thought that made her uncomfortable. She glanced at herself in the small mirror on the wall. With her dark hair pulled back in its usual work bun and no makeup, she looked exactly like what she was, a maid playing dress-up. Taking a deep breath, Sophia made her way to the living room. The guests were arranged on sofas and chairs, drinks in hand, all facing the piano. Vincent Blackwood stood nearby, watching her entrance with that same unreadable expression. As she crossed the room, the conversations died away, replaced by expectant silence. Sophia sat at the piano bench, adjusting it slightly. Her heart hammered in her chest. She could feel sweat forming on her palms, not good for playing. She wiped them discreetly on the sides of her dress. "What will you be playing for us, Sophia?" Vincent asked, his voice carrying clearly across the quiet room. Sophia's mind went blank. She hadn't prepared anything specific, assuming she would just fumble through whatever simple piece came to mind. But sitting here now, feeling the weight of all those stares, she made a decision. If Vincent Blackwood wanted to humiliate her, she wouldn't make it easy for him. "Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor," she said clearly. She saw a flicker of surprise cross Vincent's face. It was one of the most challenging pieces in the piano repertoire, a test for even accomplished pianists. He probably expected her to play some simple tune, something befitting a maid with modest training. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, gathering herself. Then she placed her hands on the keys and began to play. The opening notes were tentative, almost questioning. Sophia could feel the stiffness in her fingers, the years of neglect evident in her technique. But as the music progressed, something strange happened. Her body remembered what her conscious mind had forgotten. Her fingers found their way across the keys as if guided by invisible threads of memory. The piece began to build, gaining complexity and emotion. Sophia leaned into the music, letting it flow through her. The nervousness faded, replaced by a feeling she had almost forgotten. The pure joy of creation, of bringing something beautiful into being. She forgot about the audience watching her. Forgot about Vincent Blackwood and his cruel intentions. Forgot about everything except the music itself, with its storms and calms, its moments of tender beauty and passionate intensity. As the piece reached its dramatic climax, Sophia poured everything into it, her frustrations, her fears, her secret dreams that had never died but only lain dormant. Her fingers flew across the keys with growing confidence, drawing sounds from the magnificent instrument that filled the room and touched something in everyone present. When the final notes faded away, Sophia remained still for a moment, eyes closed, breathing hard as if she'd run a race. The silence that followed was complete. Then someone began to clap. Others joined in, the applause growing until it filled the room. Sophia opened her eyes to see several guests on their feet, genuine appreciation on their faces. She turned slightly to look at Vincent Blackwood. He hadn't moved from his position near the piano. But his expression had changed completely. The cool superiority was gone, replaced by something Sophia couldn't quite identify. Surprise, certainly, but also something deeper. His eyes met hers, and for the first time, he seemed to actually see her. That was... he began, then stopped, as if unable to find the right words. An older man stepped forward, one of the investors. Sophia guessed from earlier conversations. "Young lady, that was extraordinary," he said. "Where did you study?" Sophia hesitated, unsure how to answer. "More importantly," interrupted a woman in a midnight blue dress, "why on earth are you working as a housekeeper when you can play like that?" The room grew quiet again, all eyes on Sophia. She felt the weight of their attention shift from amused curiosity to genuine interest. This wasn't how the evening was supposed to go. Vincent Blackwood had intended to put her in her place, to reinforce the boundaries between their worlds. Instead, she had inadvertently crossed those boundaries. "I believe," Vincent said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension. "That's a story worth hearing." His eyes never left Sophia's face as he added, "if Sophia is willing to share it with us." Sophia looked around the room at all the expectant faces. These people lived in a different world from hers, a world where talent was nurtured, not sacrificed. A world where choices weren't limited by bank account balances and medical bills. What could they possibly understand about her life? "It's not a very interesting story," she said quietly. "I disagree," said the older man who had complimented her playing. He stepped closer, studying her with kind eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. "My name is Robert Chen. I sit on the board of the National Symphony Orchestra. That level of playing doesn't come from nowhere." Sophia felt cornered. She glanced at Vincent Blackwood, expecting him to end this uncomfortable situation, but he just watched her with that same unreadable expression. A woman with silver-streaked black hair moved to stand beside Robert. "I'm Patricia Winters," she said. "I teach at the Westmore Conservatory of Music." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You look familiar, young lady. Have we met before?" Sophia's heart skipped a beat. The Westmore Conservatory. She had performed there once years ago at a student showcase. Could this woman actually remember her? Before Sophia could respond, Vincent cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should give Sophia some space," he said smoothly. "After all, she's here as staff, not to be interrogated by my guests." The words stung, reminding Sophia of her place. Whatever moment of transcendence she had experienced at the piano was over. She was just the maid again. "Of course," Patricia said, though she continued to look at Sophia with curiosity. "But I would love to hear more about your background another time." The evening shifted back to normal after that. Guests returned to their conversations, though Sophia noticed she was receiving different looks now, some appraising, some curious, a few even respectful. Vincent instructed her to remain in the living room in case any guests wanted to hear more music, but no one made the request. It felt like being on display in a museum. Look, but don't touch. By midnight, the party began to wind down. Guests departed in expensive cars and private cars, many pausing to compliment Sophia on their way out. Patricia Winters pressed a business card into her hand with a whispered, "Call me." Robert Chen did the same. Soon only Vincent remained, standing by the large windows overlooking the garden, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The catering staff were cleaning up in the kitchen and dining room, but the living room was quiet except for the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. Sophia stood awkwardly, unsure if she should leave or wait to be dismissed. The black dress suddenly felt too formal, too presumptuous. She wanted to change back into her uniform, to return to the familiar comfort of invisibility. "You lied to me," Vincent said finally, still facing the window. Sophia tensed. "Sir?" He turned to look at her. "You said your grandmother taught you that you had nothing formal." He set his glass down on a side table. "No one plays Chopin like that without formal training." "Years of it?" Sophia felt a flicker of defiance. "I didn't lie. My grandmother did teach me first. I just left some things out." "Like what?" Sophia hesitated. She rarely talked about her past. What was the point? It only reminded her of what she had lost, what she could never get back. But something in Vincent Blackwood's expression, a genuine curiosity she hadn't seen before, made her answer. "I had a scholarship to the Rivera School of Music when I was 16. she said. I studied there for almost 5 years. Vincent raised his eyebrows. The Rivera School? That's one of the top music programs in the country. Sophia nodded. My teacher thought I could have a career as a concert pianist. I was preparing for international competitions when... She trailed off, unwilling to share the most painful parts of her story with this man who had tried to humiliate her just hours ago. When what? Vincent pressed. Sophia took a deep breath. When my mother got sick. Cancer. Stage 3 by the time they found it. The familiar pain washed over her, dulled by time but never truly gone. She didn't have good insurance. The bills started piling up right away. Understanding dawned in Vincent's eyes. So you left school to work? I didn't have a choice, Sophia said simply. My mother raised me alone after my father left when I was 4. There was no one else to help her. I picked up every job I could find. Waitressing, cleaning houses, office work. Anything that paid. And the piano? Sophia glanced at the beautiful instrument, feeling that familiar ache. There was no time for practicing 6 hours a day anymore. No money for lessons. Eventually, I sold my upright piano to pay for one of Mom's treatments. She gave a small shrug. Life happens. Dreams change. Vincent was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its usual sharp edge. Is your mother... She's still fighting, Sophia said quickly. The treatments worked for a while. She's been in remission twice, but it came back each time. Right now she's stable, but... She didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what she meant. Vincent walked to the piano, running his hand lightly over its glossy surface. I bought this because it looked impressive in the room, he said. I never learned to play myself. Never had the patience for it as a child. He gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. My mother hired 5 different teachers. I drove them all away. Sophia didn't know how to respond to this unexpected glimpse into Vincent Blackwood's life. You must think I'm terrible, he said suddenly, turning to face her. Using you as entertainment for my guests? It doesn't matter what I think, Sophia replied carefully. I'm just the housekeeper. That's not true. Vincent's gaze was direct now, almost uncomfortable in its intensity. Not after what I heard tonight. You're an artist, Sophia, a real one. She shook her head slightly. I was, maybe, once. No, he insisted. That kind of talent doesn't just disappear. It's still there. I heard it. They stood in silence, the weight of his words hanging between them. Sophia felt exposed, as if Vincent Blackwood was seeing parts of her that she had carefully hidden away from the world. And from herself. It's late, he said finally. You should go home and rest. Take tomorrow off. With pay, of course, Sophia nodded, relief washing over her. She needed time to process everything that had happened tonight. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Vincent, he corrected her, then looked surprised at himself. At least when it's just us, Mr. Blackwood makes me feel like my father. The drive home to her small apartment was surreal. Sophia kept replaying the evening in her mind. The fear before performing, the freedom during it, the unexpected aftermath. She had gone to work that morning expecting humiliation. Instead, she had rediscovered a part of herself she thought was gone forever. As she climbed the stairs to her second-floor apartment, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her mother. How was work tonight, honey? Did you dust any fancy things? Sophia smiled at her mother's attempt at humor. Ana Reyes always tried to find something light in every situation, even through years of grueling treatments and uncertainty. Actually, Mom, Sophia typed back, I played piano tonight. 3 dots appeared immediately as her mother began typing a response. Then, you what? Call me right now. Sophia unlocked her apartment door, kicked off her shoes, and called her mother. As soon as Anna answered, Sophia told her everything. The awkward invitation, the dress, the performance, the unexpected interest from Patricia Winters and Robert Chen. Oh, Sophia, her mother breathed when she finished the story. This could be your chance to go back to music. Sophia sighed, sinking onto her worn couch. Mom, don't start. You know that's not possible. Your treatments have been the same for 2 years now, Anna interrupted. And I'm stable. The doctors are optimistic about this new medication. But the cost has ruled our lives for too long, Anna said firmly. I've watched you put everything on hold for me, Sophia. Your education, your career, your dreams. I can't bear it anymore. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. What choice do we have? Maybe this is the universe giving us one, Anna suggested softly. These connections you made tonight, the symphony board member, the conservatory teacher, and even this Vincent Blackwood character. He's my boss, Mom, and not exactly a nice person. People can surprise you, Anna replied. You said he seemed different after he heard you play. Sophia thought about the change in Vincent's demeanor, the glimpse of vulnerability when he admitted he'd never learned to play himself. Maybe, she conceded. But I can't just quit my job for some vague possibility of returning to music. We need steady income. Promise me you'll at least call those people who gave you their cards, Anna pleaded. Just to explore options for me? Sophia closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. Okay, Mom, I promise. After they hung up, Sophia changed out of the black dress and hung it carefully in her closet. She wondered if she was supposed to return it to the mansion, or if it had been a one-time gift for the performance. Either way, it looked strangely out of place among her simple, practical clothes, like a physical reminder of the evening's surreal events. As she got ready for bed, Sophia found herself humming the Chopin ballade. Her fingers moved unconsciously, playing invisible keys in the air. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to remember how it felt to be immersed in music, the joy, the freedom, the sense of purpose. She fell asleep wondering what Vincent Blackwood would say if he knew that his attempt to put her in her place had instead reminded her of who she really was. The next morning, Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through her thin curtains. For a moment she lay still, trying to convince herself that last night had been a dream. But the business cards on her nightstand told a different story. She picked up Patricia Winter's card, running her thumb over the embossed lettering. The Westmore Conservatory of Music, a place she had once dreamed of attending before the Rivera School scholarship came through. What would happen if she called the number? What could she possibly say?
Hi, I'm the maid who played piano at Vincent Blackwood's dinner party.
Remember me? Sophia sighed and set the card down. Despite her promise to her mother, the idea of reaching out felt impossible. That world wasn't hers anymore. She had made her choice years ago, and dwelling on what might have been would only bring pain. Her phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number, this is Vincent Blackwood. Please call when convenient. Sophia stared at the screen in disbelief. How did he get her personal number? Probably from her employment file. But why was he texting her? She had the day off, he had said so himself. With a feeling of unease, she dialed the number. Sophia, Vincent answered on the first ring. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Blackwood, she replied cautiously. Vincent, he corrected again. I hope I didn't wake you. No, I was up. Sophia sat on the edge of her bed, wondering where this conversation was going. Is something wrong? Do you need me to come in today after all? No, nothing like that. There was a pause then. I've been thinking about our conversation last night. About your situation, Sophia tensed. She didn't like the idea of being Vincent Blackwood's charity case. My situation is fine, sir, Vincent. I appreciate your concern, but Robert Chen called me this morning, Vincent interrupted. He was quite impressed with your playing. He wants to meet with you. Sophia's breath caught. Why? He didn't say exactly. But he mentioned something about an upcoming showcase at the Symphony Hall. New talent, that sort of thing. Sophia closed her eyes, trying to ignore the small flicker of hope in her chest. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Vincent sounded genuinely puzzled. Because I haven't seriously played in years. Because I have a job and responsibilities. Because my mother's medical bills. What if those weren't concerns? Vincent cut in. What if you had time to practice, to prepare properly? Sophia laughed without humor. That would be nice, but that's not my reality. It could be. Vincent's voice was serious now. I have a proposal for you, Sophia. Hear me out before you answer. She waited, suddenly wary. Take a leave of absence from your housekeeping duties. 3 months with full pay. Use my piano to practice. The house is empty most weekdays. Meet with Robert, see what he has in mind. If nothing comes of it, your job will be waiting for you. Sophia was stunned into silence. This couldn't be real. Why would you do that? She finally managed to ask. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Let's just say I recognize what it's like to have potential that goes unfulfilled. Vincent replied, his voice quieter now. The difference is you had your choice taken from you. I threw mine away. Before Sophia could respond, he continued in a more businesslike tone. Think about it. You don't need to decide right now. Take the weekend. We can talk on Monday. After they hung up, Sophia sat motionless, her mind racing. The offer was incredible, almost too good to be true. What was Vincent's real motivation? Was this guilt over his attempt to embarrass her? Some rich man's whim? Or something else entirely? She thought about calling her mother to discuss it, but she already knew what Anna would say. Her mother had always been her biggest supporter, even when it meant personal sacrifice. Of course she would tell Sophia to accept Vincent's offer. Instead, Sophia got dressed and grabbed her keys. She needed to clear her head, to think this through carefully before making any decisions. The small neighborhood park was quiet on a weekday morning. Sophia found an empty bench and sat watching a group of ducks paddle around the pond. The familiar weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. Her entire adult life had been shaped by practical concerns, paying bills, buying medicine, keeping a roof over their heads. The idea of setting those concerns aside even temporarily to pursue something as impractical as music felt almost irresponsible. Yet a voice inside her whispered, "If not now, when?" Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Vincent. "Robert Chen would like to meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Symphony Hall if you're available. No pressure, just a conversation. No pressure, right?" Sophia almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. She took a deep breath and called her mother. 20 minutes later, Sophia had her answer. Her mother's joy at the possibility of Sophia returning to music had been impossible to resist. "You've put your life on hold for me long enough," Anna had insisted. "If you don't at least explore this opportunity, I'll never forgive myself." So Sophia texted Vincent back, "I'll meet with Mr. Chen tomorrow." His response came immediately. "Excellent. My driver will pick you up at 1:30. The next day, Sophia found herself sitting in the back of a sleek black car with tinted windows. Being driven to Symphony Hall, she had agonized over what to wear before settling on her one good pair of black pants and a simple blue blouse. Professional but not pretentious. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap as the city streets passed by outside. The driver dropped her at the main entrance where Robert Chen was waiting. The older man smiled warmly as she approached. "Sophia, thank you for coming." He shook her hand firmly. "Vincent told me you'd agreed to meet. I'm delighted." He led her inside the magnificent building with its soaring ceilings and gleaming marble floors. Sophia had been here once before, years ago, to watch a performance with her fellow music students. Being back felt like stepping into another life. "I'll be direct," Robert said as they settled into comfortable chairs in his office. "What I heard at Vincent's party was remarkable. Not just technically proficient, but emotionally authentic. That's rare, especially in someone who hasn't been actively performing." Sophia felt herself blush. "I'm very out of practice," she admitted. "That was the first time I'd played seriously in almost 7 years. Robert's eyebrows rose. "Then it's even more impressive." He leaned forward. "Sophia, every year we host a young artist showcase. Up-and-coming musicians perform, donors attend, connections are made. It's a launching pad for new careers." He paused. "I'd like you to consider performing." Sophia's heart raced. "When is it?" 3 months from now. The same time frame as Vincent's offer. Was that a coincidence? "I don't know," Sophia began. "Just think about it," Robert urged. "No need to decide today. But if you're interested, I could arrange for you to work with one of our staff pianists to prepare. Patricia Winters has already volunteered, in fact." Sophia's head was spinning. "This is all happening very fast." Robert nodded sympathetically. "I understand. But talent like yours shouldn't be hidden away. Vincent told me a little about your circumstances. Your mother's illness, the financial pressures that forced you to leave your studies." He held up a hand when Sophia stiffened. He wasn't gossiping, just explaining why someone with your abilities was working as a housekeeper. "And it made me think about how many gifted artists we lose because of practical constraints." He reached for a folder on his desk. "If you decide to participate in the showcase, there's a stipend for performers." He named a figure that made Sophia's eyes widen. "Not a fortune, but enough to help with expenses while you prepare." As Sophia left Symphony Hall an hour later, her mind was reeling. Robert had shown her around, introduced her to staff members. even let her play briefly on the magnificent Busendorfer grand piano in the empty concert hall. The sound had been transcendent, the feel of the keys under her fingers like coming home. The black car was waiting to take her back to her apartment. As she settled into the back seat, her phone rang. "Vincent, how did it go?" he asked without preamble. "Good, I think," Sophia replied, still processing everything. "He offered me a spot in their Young Artists Showcase. 3 months from now. And? Will you do it?" Sophia hesitated. "I'm considering it." "But you haven't decided." "It wasn't a question. It's a big step," she said. "Stepping back into that world after so long." "You're afraid," Vincent said bluntly. Sophia felt a flash of irritation. "Of course I'm afraid." "Aren't you ever afraid of anything, Mr. Billionaire?" There was a startled pause, then Vincent laughed, a genuine sound that Sophia hadn't heard from him before. "Touché," he said. "And yes, I'm afraid of plenty. But I've learned that regret is usually worse than failure." The car pulled up outside her apartment building. "I have to go," Sophia said. "Think about my offer," Vincent reminded her. "The job leave, use of the piano. It still stands regardless of what you decide about the showcase." After hanging up, Sophia climbed the stairs to her apartment slowly, her mind still at Symphony Hall. The feel of that magnificent piano, the acoustics of the concert hall, the excitement in Robert Chen's voice when he talked about the showcase, it all pulled at something deep inside her, something she had tried to bury years ago. When she opened her apartment door, she was surprised to find her mother sitting on the couch. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Sophia hurried over to hug her. Anna Reyes looked tired, her face thinner than it had been a month ago, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "I took a cab," Anna explained. "I had to hear about your meeting in person, not over the phone." She patted the sofa beside her. "Tell me everything." So Sophia did, describing Symphony Hall, Robert Chen's offer, the stipend, and Vincent's strange proposition. As she talked, her mother's smile grew wider. "You're going to do it, right?" Anna asked when Sophia finished. "I don't know, Mom. It's been so long." "Sophia Reyes," her mother said firmly, taking her hands. "Look at me." When Sophia met her eyes, Anna continued. "When you were little, you used to play our old upright piano for hours. You'd forget to eat. You'd play until your fingers hurt. Music isn't just something you do, it's who you are." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. "But what about your treatments? The bills?" "We'll figure it out," Anna insisted. "We always do. But this chance might not come again." Sophia took a deep breath, making her decision. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll do it." The smile that lit up her mother's face was worth every doubt, every fear. "But," Sophia added with a small smile, "you have to promise to be in the front row." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," Anna replied, squeezing her daughter's hands. "Now call that rich boss of yours and tell him you're taking his offer." "And Sophia?" Her eyes twinkled mischievously. "Make sure he knows it's not because he told you to. It's because you've decided it's what you want." 3 months passed in a whirlwind of practice, lessons, and preparation. Sophia's days took on a new rhythm. Mornings at Blackwood Estate working with Patricia Winters. Afternoons practicing alone. Evenings studying music theory to refresh what she had forgotten over the years. The mansion felt different now. Instead of cleaning it, Sophia spent her days in the living room with the grand piano as her companion. Vincent was rarely there during her practice sessions, which was both a relief and, strangely, a disappointment. When their paths did cross, their interactions were polite but brief, as if neither knew quite how to define their new relationship. 1 month into her preparation, Sophia received the official program for the Young Artists Showcase. Seeing her name printed there, Sophia Reyes, pianist, brought tears to her eyes. She was really doing this. Returning to the world she had loved and lost, even if just for one night. "How's it coming along?" Vincent's voice startled her one afternoon, as she worked through a particularly challenging passage of Liszt's La Campanella, the piece she had chosen for the showcase. Sophia looked up to find him leaning against the doorframe, watching her with that unreadable expression. She hadn't heard him come home. "Better, I think," she replied, flexing her fingers. "Patricia says my technique is coming back quickly, but I still get tired faster than I used to." Vincent nodded. "I heard you playing when I came in. It sounded impressive." Sophia smiled slightly. "That's because you walked in during one of the few parts I can play without messing up." To her surprise, Vincent chuckled. Well, you have me fooled. He hesitated, then asked, Do you need anything? Equipment, books, anything that would help? Sophia shook her head. You've already done more than enough. An awkward silence fell between them. Vincent shifted his weight, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Listen, I've been meaning to ask. Your mother's treatments, are they? Is the stipend from the symphony helping with those? Sophia tensed. Her mother's medical expenses were still a constant worry, even with the showcase stipend. We're managing, she said carefully. Vincent studied her face. That's not really an answer, Sophia sighed. The stipend helps, but her insurance denied coverage for a new medication her doctor recommended. We're appealing, but it's a long process. Vincent nodded, his expression thoughtful. I might know someone who could help with that appeal. Let me make a call. Before Sophia could respond, he was gone, leaving her staring at the empty doorway in confusion. What had just happened? The Vincent Blackwood who had hired her as a maid, the cold, demanding perfectionist, seemed to be slowly disappearing, replaced by someone she didn't quite recognize. 2 weeks before the showcase, disaster struck. Sophia arrived at her mother's apartment for their weekly dinner together to find Anna in bed, pale and shaking with fever. It's nothing, Anna insisted weakly. Just a cold, but Sophia knew better. With her mother's compromised immune system, even a minor infection could be dangerous. She called the doctor immediately, and by that evening, Anna was admitted to the hospital with pneumonia. Sophia spent the night in an uncomfortable chair beside her mother's hospital bed, listening to the beeping monitors and watching Anna's labored breathing. The showcase, the piano, Vincent's strange generosity, none of it mattered compared to this. When morning came, Sophia called Patricia to cancel their lesson, explaining the situation in a voice thick with unshed tears. Of course, dear, Patricia said. Family comes first. Keep me posted. Next, Sophia called the mansion to leave a message for Vincent, not expecting him to be there or to care much about her absence. To her surprise, he answered the phone himself. What hospital? He asked after she explained. Before she could ask why he wanted to know, he added, I'll be there in 20 minutes, and hung up. True to his word, Vincent arrived at the hospital room exactly 20 minutes later. Sophia stared in shock as he walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee and a paper bag that smelled of fresh pastries. How is she? He asked, handing Sophia one of the coffees. Stable, Sophia replied, too exhausted and confused to question his presence. The antibiotics are starting to work, but the doctor says she'll need to stay for at least a week. Vincent nodded, pulling a chair up beside Sophia's. You look terrible, he observed bluntly. When did you last sleep? Sophia shrugged. I dozed a little last night. You need rest, Vincent said. You can't help your mother if you collapse yourself. I'm not leaving her, Sophia said firmly. Vincent studied her for a moment, then nodded. I understand. But at least eat something. He offered the paper bag. They sat in companionable silence as Sophia nibbled at a croissant. It was surreal, sitting in a hospital room with her billionaire boss who just months ago had tried to humiliate her at a dinner party. Why are you here? She finally asked. Vincent looked uncomfortable. I thought you might need support, but why do you care? He was quiet for so long that Sophia thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was softer than she had ever heard it. Because I recognize a second chance when I see one. Before she could ask what he meant, a nurse entered to check Anna's vital signs. By the time the nurse left, Vincent was back to his usual businesslike self. I've spoken to the hospital administrator, he said. Your mother will have a private room and the best care available. I've also expedited that insurance appeal we discussed. Sophia stared at him in disbelief. You can't just— I can, he interrupted. And I have. The only thing you need to worry about right now is your mother and your performance. I can't perform, Sophia protested. Not with my mother in the hospital. The showcase is still 2 weeks away, Vincent pointed out. And Anna would want you to do it. As if on cue, Anna stirred in the hospital bed. Her eyes fluttered open, focusing first on Sophia, then on Vincent. You must be the famous Mr. Blackwood, she said, her voice weak but clear. Vincent looked startled. You know who I am? Anna managed a small smile. Sophia talks about you all the time. Sophia felt her cheeks flush. Mom, please rest. I will, Anna promised. After Mr. Blackwood tells me why he's sitting in my hospital room. To Sophia's surprise, Vincent looked almost embarrassed. I came to see if Sophia needed anything. Anna's gaze was piercing despite her weakened state. And why would you do that? Vincent hesitated. Because your daughter has reminded me of something important that I'd forgotten. And what's that? Anna pressed. That talent is a gift, not a possession, Vincent replied quietly. And that true strength isn't about power or money. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for the people you love. Anna's expression softened. Well, she said, it seems my Sophia has had quite an effect on you, Mr. Blackwood. The days that followed established a new routine. Sophia spent mornings at the hospital with her mother, whose condition improved steadily. Afternoons were for practice at the mansion, and evenings found her back at the hospital, often with Vincent stopping by with dinner for both of them. 1 week before the showcase, the doctor declared Anna well enough to go home, though she would need rest and follow-up care. Sophia was relieved but worried about leaving her mother alone while she performed. Don't you dare use me as an excuse to back out, Anna said when Sophia expressed her concerns. I've waited 7 years to see you on stage again. Nothing is going to stop me from being there. The night of the showcase arrived with a flurry of nervous energy. Sophia stood backstage at Symphony Hall, peeking through the curtains at the crowd filling the seats. Robert Chen had told her the event was sold out. 400 people, including influential musicians, critics, and potential sponsors. Nervous? Vincent's voice came from behind her. Sophia turned to find him in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. Terrified, she admitted. He smiled. Don't be. I've heard you practice. You're ready. Sophia took a deep breath. What if I'm not? What if I've forgotten what it feels like to perform for real? What if... Sophia, Vincent interrupted gently. Stop thinking, just play. Play like you did that first night when you didn't care what anyone thought because you were playing for yourself. She nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. Your mother's here, Vincent added. Front row center as promised. Patricia and Robert are with her. Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. Thank you. For everything. Vincent looked away, clearly uncomfortable with her gratitude. Don't thank me yet. The real work begins after tonight. What do you mean? Robert has connections with the Westmore Conservatory. If you want to return to your studies, there might be a scholarship available. Sophia stared at him. But my job, my mother's care can be figured out, Vincent said firmly. One step at a time, a stagehand appeared. 5 minutes, Ms. Reyes. As the stagehand hurried away, Vincent surprised Sophia by taking her hand. 7 months ago, I tried to humiliate you because I saw you as just a maid, he said quietly. I was wrong. You're one of the most remarkable people I've ever met. Sophia Reyes. No matter what happens tonight, remember that. Before Sophia could respond, he squeezed her hand once and walked away, leaving her staring after him in amazement. When her name was announced, Sophia walked onto the stage in a simple black dress, not so different from the one Vincent had provided for that fateful dinner party. The spotlight was blinding, the silence of the audience deafening. She sat at the magnificent piano, adjusted the bench, and looked out at the crowd. In the front row, her mother sat beaming with pride, looking stronger than she had in weeks. Beside her were Patricia, Robert, and Vincent, an unlikely trio united by their belief in her. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment, letting the silence wrap around her. Then she placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The music flowed through her, around her, beyond her. Every hour of practice, every tear of frustration, every moment of doubt dissolved in the pure joy of creation. She wasn't playing for the critics or the sponsors or even for Vincent Blackwood. She was playing for herself, for the girl who had once dreamed of filling concert halls, and for her mother who had sacrificed everything to give her that chance. When the final notes faded away, there was a moment of absolute silence, a held breath, a suspended heartbeat. Then the audience erupted in applause, rising to their feet in a standing ovation. Sophia stood and bowed, tears streaming down her face. As she straightened, her eyes met Vincent's. He wasn't applauding like the others. He was simply watching her, a small smile on his face and an expression in his eyes that looked remarkably like pride. In that moment, Sophia understood what he had meant about second chances. This night wasn't just her return to music. It was the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. A chapter where a wealthy man learned the true meaning of value, and a talented woman reclaimed the gift she had thought was lost forever. As Sophia took another bow, she knew that whatever came next, conservatory, concerts, a career reborn. She would face it with confidence. Because sometimes, the most unexpected people help us find our way back to ourselves. And sometimes the music that seems silenced forever is just waiting for the right moment to play again.